Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1, and my goodness, it is that time again. We are a little over a week from the first F1 race of the 2025 season, and that means it's time to do some predicting, and that's what we're going to do in this video here today. We're going to run through the F1 standings, we're going to predict from 20th to first. We're also going to have a look at the feeder series as well, F1 Academy, F3 and F2, which I think is as difficult as the F1 guys as well, because we've got a very close field in F1 this year, especially that top 4 teams, the top 8 drivers can really go in any order, kinda. And F2, F3, F1 Academy is a close one as well. Actually, F1 Academy is very easy, but the rest of them are very difficult. So we'll get into all of that right now. Remember to like and subscribe. Let's get into this. Starting with F1 Academy, and there's a few drivers in F1 Academy who I'm really excited about watching this year, including Ella Lloyd, Nina Gaidman, Chloe Chambers, Maya Vug. All of them last year, if they were full-time drivers, in the case of Chloe Chambers and Maya Vug, were very impressive, and Ella Lloyd and Nina Gaidman, I think, were the two best wildcards from last year. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do over the course of a season. But none of those drivers are my choice for the winner this year, because I'm choosing Dorian Pan to be the F1 Academy champion of 2025. Now, I did pick her to be the champion last year. That didn't work out so much. Of course, went to Avi Pulling in the end. But Dorian Pan was a very, very comfortable second place last year. She even turned up to the start of the year and looked like the very best on the grid. Then, as the season went on, Avi Pulling got better and better and better. But over the course of the season, it was very obviously Avi Pulling and Dorian Pan, the top two. Then there was a bit of a gap, Maya Vug, then a bit of a gap, and then everyone else. So unless there is someone like a Nina Gaidman or an Ella Lloyd who's going to turn up this year and instantly go to the top, I don't really see anyone challenging her like Abby Pulling did last year. So Dorian Pan for F1 Academy Champion 2025. Formula 3 now, and Formula 3 is a difficult one because you can always look towards the year before and see who did well, but you never know when someone's going to come along like a Gabriele Bortoleto or an Oscar Piastri and just in their rookie year become champion. So you've always got to keep an eye out for people like that, but there's a lot of talent in F3 this year, and of course they have got brand new cars, so last year's records really count for nothing. That's what we saw with Formula 2 last year, where, you know, Prema went from one of the most dominant teams in the history of Formula 2 to really not understanding the car, and for the first half of the year we're just kind of nowhere. So it's a difficult one, but there are some really interesting names in Formula 3 this year, like Noel Leon. There's Ugo Ugochukwu, who I was probably incorrectly pronounced, I do apologise, but he has been McLaren's next big thing for quite some time now, so I'm looking forward to see how he does. Rafael Camara, who is the Formula Regional Champion, so he is one to keep an eye on for sure. Callum Voisin from last year carries over. Lewis Sharp is the GB3 champion, so he's one to keep an eye on. And like I said, it's really hard to tell because you have no idea which teams are going to be doing well. From pre-season testing for Formula 3, it looks like Campos might have the best car. So I've gone with a Campos driver. I've gone with Nicholas Solov to be Formula 3 champion. But it is really difficult. Like Mari Boyer is in Campos. He could do it as well. And then of course there's Tzantopol into Pruvazak. I would love nothing more than Formula 3 champion Tzantopol into Pruvazak, and I'll be cheering him on from the sofa all year long, but I'm going to go with Solov. I think out of the three of them, Solov is the better driver. We'll wait and see. Formula 3, honestly, could be anyone. And across to Formula 2 now, and I love Formula 2 so much. It's always, the last few years, has been the best racing in the world for me, Formula 2. And there's some great drivers in there this year. Leo Fornaroli, of course, the reigning Formula 3 champion. Pepe Marti is still in there, as is Gabriele Mini, two of my favourite drivers in the feeder series for the last few years. Victor Martins continues in Formula 2 as well, and he's not one to be passed over, although last year wasn't too great for him. But the person I'm going with to become Formula 2 champion this year is Arvid Lindblad. He was in Formula 3 last year. He was one of the most impressive junior drivers I have ever seen. The double victory in Silverstone last year in Formula 3 is one of the best drives in feeder series history. Fantastic, fantastic weekend for him. Unfortunately, towards the end of the year, it just seems like results didn't go his way. He was still in the championship hunt, but didn't quite get it in the end. This year, I think he's going to do it. He's going to become Formula 2 champion. He's already the next big thing in the eyes of Red Bull, and I think he will be used as like someone hovering over the heads of the Racing Bulls drivers in terms of, if you mess up, we've got this guy. But yeah, I think he's going to do it. Formula 2 champion, Arvid Lindblad. But now it's time for the big one. Formula 1, and we're going to go through all of the places now, starting with 20th, where I have Jack Doohan. Now, this is nothing against Jack Doohan, but as we sit here right now, it seems like the majority of the world feels that he will not be in this seat come the end of the year. Franco Colapinto is just sat there, basically waiting for Doohan to be kicked out of the Alpine team. And I think it probably will happen. I don't think it's an indictment of Doohan's talent or skills, but I think he would need to have an incredible first 5 races to keep his seat. And he's a rookie, and that's just not going to happen. I always give rookies like a bit of a easier time for the first 5 or 6 races when I'm kind of reviewing them or giving them driver ratings or whatever it might be, because it takes a while to get used to a new car, a new team, and a whole new formula. So, you know, he's not going to be great out the gates because he's a rookie, but I think Alpine will use that to push him out, get Colapinto in. It's unfortunate, but it's the way I see it going. So unfortunately, I do have Jack Doohan in last place of 20th. In 19th now, I have Gabriele Bortoleto. And again, this is not an indictment of his skills either. I'm a huge fan of Bortoleto, Formula 3 champion, Formula 2 champion. But the Sauber looks dreadful. The Sauber wasn't great last year. From testing, it doesn't look like it's going to be great this year either, and Bortoleto is a rookie. You might have the thing like Zhou did last year, where it's going to be like a one-off race and he just gets some good points and jumps up the leaderboard, but from right now, I'm going to just say he's 19th place. 18th place is another rookie. It's Isaac Hadjar. Now, the Racing Bulls doesn't look great either. To be honest with you, it looks like quite the handful from what we've seen in testing. And just on that, I think he might struggle a little bit. I think it's quite weird because a few years ago, Racing Bulls made this whole big thing of we're going to have our relationship with Red Bull come closer and closer to help us get further to the front of the grid. And I think they've actually got worse. So it's not working, whatever they're doing. Hadjar, I think he will have some good results. Like I said with the Formula 2, I think Lindblad will be hovered above him in terms of, like, you know, if you don't do well, this guy might be in, and who knows, they might swap it up. Everyone talks about the cursed Red Bull seat. It's also a cursed Racing Bull seat because they always like a bit of a shuffle round in that team. So who knows if he'll make it to the end of the year. I hope he does, but I'm going to put him in 18th place. 17th now, Lance Stroll. Aston look rubbish, and I think they will fully focus on 2026. They will give up on this season incredibly early. They may have already given it up as I'm sat here right now. I'm sat here right now on the 3rd of March recording this, and today is Adrian Newey's official first day at Aston Martin. So it might be the official day that Aston go, we've given up on the 2025 championship. But yeah, the Aston looks rubbish. And Stroll isn't very good either. And, you know, it just seems like he doesn't care anymore. Like, even a few years ago, he wasn't great. But you could tell he was giving it his all the time. Now, he's not great. He doesn't care. He doesn't want to be there. And you're just like, why are you here? Like, you see his interviews and he just doesn't care. And, like, there was the Brazilian Grand Prix last year where, you know, he span out, and I was like, okay, it's wet, people spin out. But then he just slowly drove into a gravel pit and got stuck. And you're just like, if you cared, you wouldn't do that. And he doesn't care. Will this finally be the year that Lance Stroll calls it a day? I doubt it, because, you know, 26 might have a decent car, and even if you don't care, you might want to have a decent car for once in your life. But yeah, 17th for him, not great. 16th place, I have Nico Hülkenberg. As I said, I think that Sauber will be dreadful. I think it'll be really, really, really bad. But if there's someone who can get something out of a bad car, it's Nico Hülkenberg. I think his qualifying expertise might see the Sauber do well, maybe get into Q2. Unbelievable. But, you know, on a day where everything goes wrong, hopefully Hülkenberg will be there to pick up some decent points. 15th place, I have Yuki Tsunoda. I think he'll do well. As I said, the car will be bad, but I think he'll do well. He's the guy now who is relatively reliable for that team, and I think with him recently changing his manager after not getting the Red Bull seat last year, he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder this year. He wants to come out and show the world what he can do, because he's really going to the rest of the teams, look, I don't care if I leave here anymore, I'll go to another team. Look how good I can be. And if the rumours of him and Aston Martin are true with that Honda connection, he needs to show up on the track, and this will be the year that hopefully he does, although the car won't be very good, and I've got him finishing in 15th place. Let's go 2x2, Noah Ark style, with Esteban Ocon and Ollie Behrman. I've got Esteban Ocon in 14th, Ollie Behrman in 13th, the two Haas lads here. I think from what they've done in testing, they very much ran their own testing session, but the car itself looks pretty decent. I think they'll be above the likes of your Racing Bulls or your Sauber, but I don't think they'll be quite good enough to catch the likes of your Williams or Alpine, but I think they'll just be kind of there in the middle of the bottom, doing pretty well, getting points every now and again. The more shocking side of this, I have got Ollie Behrman above Esteban Ocon, and that's just because I think he's a little bit better. In terms of teammate battles, in Esteban Ocon's career, which is now a very long career, he has only ever beaten a teammate once, and that was Fernando Alonso. And I think that was the 2022 season, where Alonso did great, and then towards the end of the season, the car just kept on breaking down. And that was the reason Ocon eventually beat him, because his car would actually get to the end of the races. Apart from that, I don't think Ocon's ever beaten a teammate. So why break the habit of a lifetime? Ollie Behrman, I think, is exceptional. I think he was fantastic in his Formula 2 career. Like I said, when we're talking about Formula 3, Prema last year weren't great, but the year before, in his rookie season, I think he had the second most wins out of anyone. I think he was very high up in the wins for last year as well, so he knows what he's doing. He showed up last year for Ferrari and for Haas and did very well, and was, you know, on an equal with Hülkenberg, beat him in Baku. And I don't think, did he beat him in Brazil qualifying as well? He might have done, actually. But even still, showed up, did very well. I think Ollie Behrman will be one of the rookies that from the start hits the ground running, does well, will hopefully score some good points, and I see him outscoring Esteban Ocon. Spoiler alert, he's the only rookie I think I have that beats his more established teammates, but still, Ollie Behrman, 13th place. In 12th, I have Fernando Alonso. Now, like I've said, the Aston Martin is dreadful. But if there's one driver in Formula 1 history who knows how to drive a really bad car, it's Fernando Alonso. And I think he'll be fueled by rage because the car will not be good, but he won't be able to let it out as much because he knows that next year will be good. So he doesn't want to be shouting and screaming at everyone, so that rage will fuel his performance, and hopefully he'll get some good results in a car that does not belong in the good results. So Alonso is 12th. 11th now is Alexander Albon. The Williams looks decent. It looks like the best Williams in quite some time, but they have also admitted that they're not really focused on this year, and that's not really much of a surprise. They're going to be focused on next year's car. There's not going to be much development of this one, but hopefully the car will be good enough to get some good results from there. I have Albon in 11th. Into the top 10 now, and in 10th I have Pierre Gasly in the Alpine. There was moments of testing where the Alpine looked absolutely incredible. Such a different position to where they were this time last year. I like the look of it. I'm a huge fan of Gasly. He's one of my favourites on the grid. Really, really talented guy, so I'm hoping he does well. But what I hope is also there is the carrying on of the momentum from the end of last season, where he was delivering some fantastic racing, looking like the Pierre Gasly of old. Hopefully that continues into the start of this season and throughout. I think the bottom 6 teams are all going to give up on this year relatively early and focus on next year. So they should all stay around about the same place, which hopefully will mean that the Alpine is the 5th or 6th best car on the grid and can get some decent points from there. So I'm hoping for a good year for Gasly. He is 10th. 9th now, and it's Carlos Sainz in the Williams. Like I said, the Williams looks very good. I think right now it's between them and Alpine for the 5th best team. I'd probably maybe push it a bit more to Williams as we sit here right now. But Carlos Sainz is an exceptional driver. He is absolutely fantastic. He deserves a hell of a lot better than a Williams, if I'm perfectly honest with you. And I think that is something that will fuel him a little bit as well. If I was him, I'd be annoyed that Ferrari just went, nah, go on, get lost, even before the season had even started. And I think that has upset him in a bit, and I think that will fuel him here. Also, the car looks good, he looks good, it's a good combination. I think he's going to come in and kind of put his foot down in the Williams team and say, I'm the leader here now. You've done a great job for the last few years, Albon, but this is now the Carlos Sainz team. Let's go to 2026. Let's have a decent car. Let's win some races. But right now, 9th for Carlos Sainz. The best of the rest, if you will. Into the top 8. And I think this might be one of the closest top 8s we've ever had. We have 4 big teams and likes of McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull and Mercedes, who I think have all turned up to this year with cars that are very, very, very close. And any of these 8 drivers could realistically be in any position here, and you'd go, oh, okay, I can kind of see it. But let's get into it. In 8th place, I have got Liam Lawson, and I think Liam Lawson is the hardest to predict driver on the entire grid, for many reasons here. So firstly, we've just got him as a driver. He has 11 races in Formula 1. And it's not just like, 11 in a row. It was like, oh, here's a few in the middle of the 2023 season. Here's a few at the end of the 2024 season. He's never done an F1 testing. He's never started a season before. Nikita Mazepin has nearly double the F1 races of Liam Lawson. He showed us that he was very good in the races that he did do. But realistically, he is a massive unknown quantity in Formula 1. We have no idea how he's going to shine in a top car. We have no idea how he's going to last over the course of a complete season. He is really a massive unknown here. And alongside that as well, not only is he an unknown, the Red Bull in general is an unknown. They didn't even do a race running testing. We have no idea where they really are. And another thing with Red Bull is, with most teams, if a car is good, both drivers do good. If a car is bad, both drivers do bad. That is not the case for Red Bull Racing. For the last 5 or 6 years, it doesn't really matter where the car is. The performance of the drivers are massively different. Case in point, last year, the car started very well. Max Verstappen did very well. Sergio Perez did pretty well. Then the car massively dropped off. Sergio Perez did very badly. Max Verstappen continued to do well. Another example, 2020 season. The Red Bull is Max Verstappen and Alex Albon. Alex Albon's kind of narrative storyline for that season is, can Alex Albon stand on the podium? That was the big question, race to race. Can Albon finally get on the podium? And in the end, he did. He got 2 podiums in the 2020 season. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen got 11 podiums in the 2020 season, the second most of anyone that year. In 2020, Mercedes turned up with one of the most dominant Formula 1 cars of all time, and Max Verstappen got the same amount of podiums as Valtteri Bottas. So it's like, with Red Bull, the car turns up, and it's just like a question of, it doesn't really matter if it's good or bad. Max Verstappen will do well with it, but who knows where the other guy's going to be. So you've got a car that's unpredictable, you have no idea where it's going to be in terms of performance on the grid, and you've got a driver who only has 11 races. So it's really difficult to point out where he's going to go, so I've just put him 8th. He could go higher, he could go lower, I hope he doesn't go lower, but I've just put him 8th, and that's where he's staying for now. We'll see where that ends up in the end of the year. To 7th now, and I've gone for Kimi Antonelli. Now I feel the Mercedes car is massively the dark horse of this year. I thought they looked amazing in testing. Not only did they get the most laps out of any team on the grid, but every time it was on the track, it looked good. Whilst you had other guys locking up, oversteer, understeer, car problems in general, the Mercedes just consistently looked solid, looked good from the start of day 1 to the end of day 3. I think it is a very, very good car. Would not be surprised if it's up near the top at the start of this year. The question comes with Kimi Antonelli because, again, he's a rookie. And we don't know where he's going to finish. We don't know where his talent ability is going to be. And when you look at him here, the guys that I have above him, all of them are established names with multiple wins under their belt now in Formula 1. So I feel it's no insult at all for him to be finishing in 7th place. I expect him to get wins this year. I expect him to get podiums this year. I'm really looking forward to seeing him driving in Formula 1, but I'm putting him in 7th. In 6th now, and this is the one that will upset people, I have Lewis Hamilton. The Ferrari for me, I think, will be good, because I think all the top 4 cars will be good and very close. But there's just something about it that just isn't sitting right with me. On the first day of testing, it looked great. Then, on the 3rd day, everything changed. It looked very smooth, and then as they tried to push it a bit more, Lewis Hamilton in the afternoon of the 3rd day looked like he was really fighting the car, really struggling, and then he just disappeared into the pits, and the car was just gone for a lot of the afternoon session. I think the Ferrari isn't as quick as the likes of the McLaren. I don't even know if it's as quick as the Mercedes, I'm perfectly honest with you, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that's a storyline going into the start of this year, people going, oh, has Lewis Hamilton made a mistake going from Mercedes to Ferrari? But I've got Lewis in 6th. I do think he'll still win races this year, he will have podiums this year, he'll do well this year, but I don't think he'll be challenging for the title this year. In 5th now, Charles Leclerc. This is a difficult one to pick, because Charles Leclerc was my driver of the year last year. I think he's absolutely exceptional. He is an amazing talent. But, like I said, there's something about the Ferrari that I just don't think it's all there this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they were the first of the top teams to go, we're now focusing on 26. It doesn't look as solid as the Mercedes. It doesn't look as fast as the McLaren, and it does not have a Max Verstappen. As good as Charles Leclerc is, he's not Max Verstappen. Again, like Hamilton, he'll win races, he'll have podiums, he'll have a good year, but he's not challenging for the title. I think I'm going to put him in 5th. 4th now is George Russell, and like I said with Kimi Antonelli, I think the Mercedes is a good car this year, and I think he will be desperate to prove his worth to the world. Even though the last few seasons he has beaten Hamilton on occasion in those seasons, he has always played second fiddle to Lewis Hamilton. And this year he's got this young rookie who's proclaimed to be the next big thing. He wants to put his foot down and go, no, Mercedes is now my team. And that's what I think he will do. I think he'll take a few wins. I think he'll do well. But I think the difference between him and the top 3 guys is I think the McLaren is a little bit quicker, and I think they will invest for longer, and much like Charles Leclerc, George Russell is not Max Verstappen. Top 3 time now. In 3rd, I've got Oscar Piastri. Now, let's talk about this McLaren, because it's quick. There's no doubt about it, it is quick, and everyone points to the race pace of the McLaren from the 2nd day of race runs as this thing of like, it's over for everyone else. I'm taking that with a bit of salt, because that was a incredibly cold day, and the track was not really realistic to how it would be in terms of temperatures, and once the temperatures go up, it might be very different, as we saw going across to day 3. So I do not believe that McLaren is however many seconds a lap quicker than everyone else. I still think it is incredibly close. And the thing is with Piastri, when we look at last year, there were days where he was on the same level as Norris. There was days where he was better than Norris, like in the likes of Monza or Baku. But for the majority of the season, he was not on Norris's level. And while I think he will improve this year, I still don't see him being on the level of Lando Norris. And I think as well, Zak Brown really wants Lando Norris to win the World Championship. So I think they will go that way. Oscar Piastri, for me, has to come out of the gates this year, elbows out, and beat Lando Norris convincingly Otherwise, he will be pushed to that second driver role. We started to see it last year. The media were going, why aren't they doing team orders? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? And if we have another World Championship battle where it comes down to Verstappen and Lando Norris, I think this time around, McLaren would have learnt their lesson and gone, we need to pull out team orders earlier. And if Oscar Piastri is not in contention for the title from the start, he will find himself in that second driver role, which I think he's better than, but I think that's the way it might go. So I've got him in third place. But McLaren in general, I think, will be the last team to pull out of developing the 2025 car. I think they're desperate for more championship success, and they are desperate for a driver's champion as well. And they can see it right now. They're in a good position to win one. I believe they will sacrifice their next 3 or 4 years of competitiveness to win one world title this year. And I think they will invest until the end. But will they win the driver's title? Let's find out right now. In second place, I have Lando Norris. I don't think he's doing it this year. I don't know if he'll ever do it, if I'm perfectly honest with you, but I've got him in second place. Like I said, the McLaren is very quick. I think they will put all their development into it to try and get it across the line, but I don't think they'll do it. They will win the Constructors yet again, but as I sit here right now and I think in my head, Lando Norris, world champion, I just can't see it. And I could be very wrong. And when I'm reacting to this at the end of the season, I might be having my head in my hands. But when we saw him last year in a position to win a championship, there was races like Singapore where he's dominating everyone and he's still making mistakes and tapping the wall. He was very lucky to not have any damage. And we know that he's an incredibly emotional guy who gets in his own head and has done for many years now. And if it comes to a close title battle, if we're talking the likes of the Verstappen-Hamilton's 2021 type title battle where it is insanely hyped and insanely emotional, I don't know if Lando Norris can cope with that, if I'm perfectly honest with you. So even though I do think he will have a faster car, I just don't think he can do it. And that's why I've gone Max Verstappen, World Champion, 2025, 5 World Championships in a row. I think he can do it because I think the Red Bull is decent. I think they are hiding a lot of their pace. They haven't done any race runs, but they're still incredibly comfortable, which should be concerning to every other team. They look like they're happy. They've already got an upgrade package coming to the first race, so they're ahead of the curve in terms of that. They seem to feel like they've found the bugs of what happened last year and fixed that. Verstappen is smiling a lot in his interviews, and he wears his emotions on his sleeve as well, as we all know. And last weekend, I went to an evening with Callum Nicholas, who was Max Verstappen's mechanic for all those years in Red Bull. And he said something that really stuck with me. He said, if you give Max Verstappen 90% of a Formula 1 car, he will go out there and find the other 10%. And that's what we saw for a lot of last year. Yes, they were easily the dominant force for like the first 7 races, but from race 8 to race 24, they were very much second, third. In terms of Monza, they were the 4th best car on the grid. And he went out there and he still got those consistent results. And if you look at the results from last year, from Miami to the end of the year, if you just took those results where Red Bull were not the fastest car, Max Verstappen still wins the title by 10 points. And I think this year, the Red Bull will not be as far off the McLaren as it was last year. I think Max Verstappen is one of the greatest racing drivers to ever live, might be the greatest one by the time his racing career ends. And I think when you look at the difference in talent between Max Verstappen and Lando Norris, it's a huge gap for me. And I think Lando Norris needs a car which is dominant to be able to beat Max Verstappen, and I think Red Bull will give Max a car which is good enough to take it to Lando Norris, and I think he will be our 2025 Formula 1 World Champion. There you go. That is our predictions for 2025 in the world of Formula 1, Formula 2, Formula 3 and Formula 1 Academy. Of course, we'll have the coverage of every single race here on the channel this year. Until next time, have a good one. I'll see you later. Goodbye.